Hey everyone, Alex here from wornoffkeys.com, and in this video, I'm going to show you how you can set up and secure a Linux VPS using Vultr. And using my link in the description, you're going to get $100 in free credit that you can use over the next 30 days to go ahead and follow along with this tutorial and to then be able to host your own websites or Discord bots or anything else you want on your VPS. So go ahead and head over to wornoffkeys.com/VPS, or you can click on the link in the description or the pinned comment and you'll get $100 in credit. So once you've created your Vultr account, you might see a page similar to this one. If not, you want to click on products, and here under instances, we can either click deploy instance here, or we can click on this plus, then click on deploy a new server. At this stage, we want to make sure we've selected cloud compute, and then you want to select the location for your server. Keep in mind that some locations are going to have a cheaper option for $2.50 a month, but we see IPv6 only. We don't want this. We want to make sure we have an IPv4 address, which means we need to have the $5 a month or higher plan. So I'm going to select Los Angeles because I live in California. And then I'm going to select Ubuntu and then the latest version here. I'm then also going to make sure I'm on the $5 plan because the $10 plan is not necessary to follow with this tutorial. Of course, if you know that your use cases require more performance on your VPS, then feel free to select a different option. So I'm going to scroll down. Here we have additional options such as automatic backups for $1 a month, enable DDoS protection for $10 a month. Go ahead and activate any of these things that you want. I'm going to leave all of these unchecked for myself. Scrolling down further, we do have the option to include SSH keys, but just in case you're not following along with Vultr, I'm not going to use this, and we're going to be setting up our SSH keys through an external program that will work no matter what hosting solution you're using. So for here, we just have to enter our own hostname. I'm going to select testing, but you can obviously select whatever you want. I could then click on deploy now, and this might take a few minutes. Here we see initializing, and once this is done, I'll come back to the video. All right, so now after waiting a few minutes, we see the status is running. We can then click on the name of our server here, and we'll then be able to see our IP address here. The username is root, like normal, and here we have a randomly generated password that we can click to copy. So there's many ways you can connect to your VPS server. A common way is to use a software called PuTTY plus another software called FileZilla. However, since 2014, I've been using this other software called Bitvice, and that is going to be an SSH client and an SFTP client in one. That means that you can connect to your console as well as upload and manage your files within one program. So go ahead and install this if you want to follow along. I'll open this up here. This IP is from a previous test using Vultr. So I'm going to go in and click this copy icon. We could then copy our IP. Going back over to Bitvice, I'm going to paste this in here, and the default port is going to be 22. We then have the user of root, as we see here. Username is root. I could then copy the password, and going back over here, you may have to click on store encrypted password in profile. But either way, you want to delete everything in the password field if there is anything, and then I can use Control-V to paste in the randomly generated password. I can then save this profile, and I can click on Login. You might have to click Accept and Save, and we are now logged into our VPS. Here we have our SFTP client, we have the files for our VPS, and we have the files for our local computer. And then here we have, obviously, the console. So I can use pwd. We see that we are in the root directory, and we're also logged in using the root user as expected. So the first step in our console is to make sure that everything is up to date. It normally should be for most hosting providers, but just to double check, using Ubuntu, we can use apt space update. And this might take a few seconds, but once it's done, we can do apt upgrade space -y. The -y here will automatically select yes for the prompt it'll give us if we exclude the -y. So this also might take a few seconds, but this will just make sure that all the default packages on our VPS are up to date. Now I can use Control L to clear my console. This makes it easier to work with. And we now want to change the default SSH port. If you know for sure that this is something you don't want to do, then you can use the YouTube player to skip to the next chapter. So if you do want to change this, we can use Nano, which is a built-in text editor to Ubuntu. So let's go ahead and use Nano and open up the correct configuration file that holds where our port is stored. So I can say nano /etc /sshd /sshd, and we can press tab to autocomplete this, and it will be sshd_config. We can then press enter, and we're going to then see this entire file. And there's a lot of options in here, but we're looking for this one near the top. It's commented out with this hash symbol, and it's called port. And here's the default port of 22, which you might recognize when logging in. So we want to change this to something else. For example, I can change this to 2222. You can change it to mostly anything you want. We could then use Control X to close this. It's going to ask if we want to save the changes. We can press Y, and then it's going to ask where we want to save it to. If we just press enter, it'll use the existing path. So basically just saving it to the existing file. So now we've changed that. So I want to double check that I can only log in using port 2222 instead of just port 22. So first, let's restart the SSHD service. We can do systemctl restart SSHD. Now we can go ahead and close these two windows, and closing either of them will make this pop up. We want to log out, and then we want to try logging in with port 22 still active. You see here that there's a connection failed. So I'm going to now change this to 2222. I can save my profile, and now I can try logging in. I can accept and save one more time, and now we're logged into our VPS again. So we've successfully changed the default port for SSH. Next, we're going to enable our firewall to ensure that only certain ports are accessible from the outside world. So to do that, I can say UFW default allow outgoing. This is going to be information sent out of our VPS to the outside world, so we want to allow all of that. We also want to deny all incoming traffic, and then after that, we will whitelist certain ports, such as our new SSH port. So we can say UFW default deny incoming, and this will deny all incoming traffic. So next, we want to allow incoming traffic from our SSH port. So I can say UFW allow 2222 or whatever you changed your SSH port to. I can now say UFW enable, and it will say command may disrupt existing SSH connections. Proceed with operation. I can say yes. And now it says firewall is active and enabled on system startup. That means if our server ever restarts, that our firewall will automatically be enabled, which is obviously something we want. Now, it's important to be aware that you do need to manually whitelist all ports that you do want to be publicly accessible. For example, for a website, you may want ports 80 and 443 to be open. And for something like a Minecraft server, you may want port 25565 to be open. That's up to your existing use cases to know what those ports are. But similar to what we just did, you can use the UFW allow command to whitelist any ports you need. So now that we're done with the firewall, we can use Control L again to clear our console. And now we're going to go ahead and set up a non-root user. Our end goal of this user is to make sure that you can only log in to our VPS using that user. And that user will have no permissions to do anything. The only purpose of it is so you, as the VPS owner, can now log into root using that user. But if someone were to gain access to the credentials for that user in some way, they don't have access to really do anything without also having information on your root user. So here in the console, I can type in add user space and then the name of the new user. I would suggest doing something that is hard to guess. In the past, I've used random animal names, but for simplicity, I'm just going to use my name here. We can then press enter, and it's going to ask me for my password. So I'm going to randomly generate one using LastPass. I can go ahead and copy this here. You can just spam your keyboard into a text file. You can write something you want to remember, or you can use another online random generator. So I'm going to go ahead and use this. Coming back, I can now right click to paste, and it says clipboard contents pasted at the bottom. I can press enter, and then I can right click again and then press enter again. It's now going to ask me for some information, and I'm going to go ahead and press enter to just use the defaults because this information doesn't really matter. Yes, the information is correct. And now we can go ahead and try and log into that user. So we see here on the left, it says root. That's the user we're currently logged in with. I can use su space Alex, and now we're logged in with the Alex user right here. Obviously, you type in the name of your own user and not Alex. Now to return back to root, I can just type in exit, and we're back to root. This will basically return you to any user you were previously logged in as. So now that we have this user created, we want to ensure that we can only log in using this user. So I'll use Control L to clear this. And we now want to use nano to configure the same file as before. So I can say nano /etc /SSH /SSHD, and I can press tab to autocomplete. I can then press enter, and we want to scroll down until we see authentication. Here we see permit root login. This is commented out in my use case, so I want to uncomment this, and I want to change this entire string to just the word no. So now I can use Control X, press Y, and press enter to save the file. I now want to reload SSH just to make sure that everything is using the latest configurations. So same as before, systemctl restart SSHD. I now can close this and I can log out of my user. We are currently set up to log in using root, and I'm going to try clicking login. So after trying to log in with Bitvice, we're not allowed to, even though we're using the correct root password, and that's because root has been disabled for any login. So we are now forced to log into our new user. So we can go ahead and close this. We want to change this to Alex, or of course, whatever your username is. We can double click on password. And we can paste in the previous password that we generated. I could then save the profile and I can try logging in. And now we're logged in using the Alex user. To change to root from here, because Alex doesn't have permission to do most of anything, we can use su space root, and then you'll be prompted to enter in your root password. I'm going to simply just copy it from back here. And going back in here, I can right click to paste. We see that confirmed at the bottom right. And now I can press enter, and we're back into the root user. Now, the next step is to ensure that we can only log into our VPS using SSH keys. SSH keys are far more secure than typical passwords, and we can create them using Bitvice. So here, we can click on Client Key Manager near the middle. We can then click on Generate New. We want a passphrase. This is something that you should remember and shouldn't save anywhere. So mine's going to be my own password. And then we can confirm this. We can then click on Generate. Keep in mind the location is profile 1. So clicking on Generate, it'll now go through and generate that. We now see profile 1 here. We want to click on Export. We can then click on Open SSH Format and then click on Export. We now have to select a file location. Mine's just going to be SSH key on my desktop. This is a file I'll delete later, so it doesn't really matter. I can then click on Save. Now we can close this. And inside of our console, make sure that you are on /home /your user. So my user is Alex, so I am in my Alex user. If you're not sure, you can use pwd as a command, and it'll tell you where you are. If you don't know how to navigate to the folder, you can use cd space, and then the path you want to go to. In this case, /home /Alex. So now we can use ls space -a This is going to list all the files and hidden files within this directory. We don't see a .ssh folder, which is something we need, so we can go ahead and make one. We can use mkdir, which is short for make directory space .ssh. We can now use ls-a, and we now see the .ssh folder right here. So let's navigate into that using the same cd command, cd space .ssh. And now we're going to use nano to go ahead and create an authorized keys file. So I can say nano authorized underscore keys. And now we have this empty file because that file didn't exist. We see new file down here, which also confirms that, which makes sense because we just created this folder. So I've now opened up the SSH key file that we exported from Bitvice a few seconds ago. This opens up in Notepad by default for me. We can use Control A and Control C to copy it. And then going back into our console, we can use right click to paste it in. I can now use Control X and then click yes to confirm and press enter to use the same file name. Just to make sure everything is using the correct configurations, we can restart SSHD again. So system ctl restart SSHD. Now going back to the main Bitvice panel here, the initial method should be changed from password to public key. We then have a client key drop down here. We want to select profile 1, which was the exact one in my use case when I generated the SSH key. We then have our passphrase, which is the thing we manually typed in. This is not your username or your root username. So this is the passphrase that you typed in when creating your SSH key. So I've typed mine in. I'm going to go ahead and log out. This will then disconnect this console here. I can then save the profile and I can try logging in again. So now we're logged in using our SSH key. The next step is to ensure that we can only log in using an SSH key and not using any password. So here I'm in the Alex user and I'm not going to have access to change the correct files. So I need to use su root and log into my root user again. I'm going to go back and copy this password. So going back here, I can now right click and paste. And now we're into our root user. So I can nano the same file as before. So nano /etc ssh sshd config. So we can now use Control W to search and we can type in password. And that's going to bring us to this field right here. And right below that, we see password authentication. And by default, this is yes. So I'm uncommenting this and then I'm changing this to no. This will ensure that we cannot log in with passwords. And the only other option will be a correctly configured SSH key. So I can then use Control X, Y, and enter to save this. I'm going to then make sure that this console stays open. Just in case something does go wrong, I'm still logged into my root user. So let's first restart our SSH service. We can actually just press up to go to our previously executed commands. And here I can just simply press enter. So again, I'm keeping this open and I am now opening a second window to Bitvice. You see the login here, and we also see two of them right here. So the existing connection is still there, but here I'm going to try logging in using the password. So we're going to change this back to password, and I'm going to paste this in here and try logging in. We don't have access, so I can now go back to public key. I can select profile 1 and type in my passphrase. I can then try logging in. And we're now able to log in. So the only way to log in is if you have access to the SSH key on your computer, and if you also have access to the name of your user. From there, you don't actually have access to anything. You still have to log into the root user to be able to do anything on your VPS. So while this might be an extra step for you to log in, it highly increases the security on your VPS, which I highly suggest doing for any projects, even just hobby ones. Now, the last step is to install something called fail to ban, which will monitor all incoming traffic. And there's often a lot of bots trying to see if you have any open loopholes within your VPS to see if they can exploit something. So fail to ban, one of the features of it is to automatically monitor those types of IPs and then block them from connecting in general. So to do this, it's very simple. We can do apt install fail to, as in the number, ban, all one word, space, -y. We can then press enter. And now we want to make sure that this service is going to be started whenever our VPS restarts. We can do this with systemctl enable fail to ban. We can also press up and then change enable to start, and that will automatically start the service. So that's everything. There's a lot more you can do for security, but this is definitely a much better setup than just a default VPS from any hosting provider. If you want to see more tutorials like this one, consider subscribing. And if my videos have helped you out, please consider clicking on the join button below this video to become a channel member. Thanks for watching.